Hello. Yes, my name is Susan Forseille, and the three presenters today, we were talking about how do you follow Julie, and especially I'm going to talk about something very transactional. So yes, I am the Director of Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition at TRU. And today I'm going to talk about TRU and prior learning assessment. I just saw a dog walk in. Okay, going to talk about a partnership or a pilot project we did with our provincial government. The why we did it, the how we did it, and really important what we learned and next steps. Okay, so to contextualize a little bit about our post-secondary institution, TRU, there's a picture of our campus this summer before the fires hit. 9 faculties and school students, just over 27,000 students, and about 13,000 FTEs, just to give you a little bit of an overview of the institution. And we have 4 prior learning pathways at TRU. I really wish I could talk about these in more detail, especially after some of the presentations today, but we have course-based prior learning, competency-based, which is we found a way to assess to assess soft skills, transversal skills, employability skills, however you name them. And I think that's a session all in itself. And we also have challenge exams. And before I go into the credit bank, which is what I'm going to talk mostly about today, I'm just going to show you this Lego image. So when you think about prior learning assessment, anybody here do anything with prior learning assessment? Recognition of prior learning? Validation of prior learning? Okay. So you think about the little bits and pieces of learning that we acquire throughout our life, and what prior learning does is it just helps the learners find all those little blocks and where those may be hitting, and we help them build it up into a way that they can be readily assessed. And yes, there's lots of problems with that, and I'm going to talk about that in a lot of detail tomorrow. What I really want to talk about is a credit bank, and we're the only one in the province of British Columbia that does this, and it is pre-assessment of community-based programs, online courses, private trainers, organizational training, and of course micro-credentials. So think about, this is maybe one of the simplest examples, but think about you're going through McDonald's and you're doing a manager's training program. We will send in assessors, pre-assess what they're teaching, how they're teaching it, how the learning's being assessed. And anybody that can say that they've been through that training program in the time that we had it assessed will automatically get credits towards their credential at TRU. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a partnership next. And this was the provincial government of British Columbia, the Ministry of Post-Secondary Education and Future Skills. Gotta love that name. TRU, and some of you in this room probably know David Porter. He's an amazing person, does a lot of consulting work now. And we began a partnership with the government asking us, is there a way that we can use prior learning assessment methods to assess micro-credentials? So to prototype, test, and document a repeatable process for micro-credentials, and using what we were already doing, but to make it better, and then how could we make it stackable and ladderable for students? And essentially, they were asking us, how can we extend our thinking about PLAR to include micro-credentials? So just a little bit more context there. Our provincial government has recently funded over 12 million Canadian dollars for post-secondary institutions to build micro-credentials. So they're investing quite heavily in this space. Most of those micro-credentials were not credit-bearing. Just a little bit more context. I don't think your context is going to be any different from whichever country you're from. But start looking at some of the World Economic Forum stats on 50% of employees will need reskilling, upskilling, or some sort of career resiliency, enhanced career resiliency in the next year and a half, next year or so. And micro-credentials have been proposed as a strategy to enable this ongoing development of knowledge and skills, so to expand what we know and how we know it, and more importantly, how we're assessing and recognizing it. In our province alone, we have more people leaving the labor market than entering into it. And you combine that with the skills that are needed to do the jobs. As we all know, there's jobs that are going to exist tomorrow that we can't even identify last year. So just almost 80% of the jobs that are being created in our province will need some sort of post-secondary education. And just like most places, the highest demand jobs will be in the caring economy, healthcare, science, and technical services. We know our current post-secondary systems are not going to meet this need. We need something much different to bring more people into the labor market. So this is the project that we did with the provincial government. As I said, they wanted us to try to use a prior learning assessment method to assess micro-credentials. We started off, there's 12 steps, and don't worry, I'm not going to go step by step. I'm just going to start with some of the most important ones. The very first thing we did was we looked at different frameworks and qualifications across the world. So we went across Canada, and it's important to note that Canada doesn't have a national education system for either their K-12 system, their kindergarten to grade 12, or for their post-secondary. So it's done province by province. So we had to go and look at what other provinces are doing. The provincial government did a micro-credential framework handbook, and we also looked in a couple of other countries. You can probably guess Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, and the European Union. We found this definition of micro-credentials from the UNESCO, and Julia, it's funny you just referenced this, but I'm not going to read out this definition, but it's interesting, it's the best one we found so far, and we actually thought it was missing some pieces as well, so it's nice to hear that somebody else in another country found the same information as us. Some of the quality features when we were doing the needs assessment and the environmental scan, this is from anybody here from Ontario? Ashley? Yes, thank you. So we found this from an organization in Ontario called Higher Education Quality Council, and they just did an image that was really well designed. So looking at what are the key features of a micro-credential, and we've talked about some of these today. So they have to be relevant to the industry. They have to be accredited, recognized or issued by a professional accrediting body or post-secondary institution. Meets a government set quality standard, so standardized, and assess. That's the piece that we've been talking a lot about today. The learner must demonstrate skills and knowledge to earn the credential. Now, tomorrow, in the presentation we're doing tomorrow, we're going to talk about who does the assessment. Next, we assembled a steering committee of like-minded people, innovative thought leaders in this space. So we have some people actually here today from KPU, Kwantlen Polytechnic University, BCIT, British Columbia Institute of Technology, and there's just a group of us that met regularly to talk about what we were going to do next. Then we, out of about 150 micro-credentials, we selected 10 that we were going to assess, and really a wide variety of industries, learning, so everything from mass timber construction to metabolomics to introduction to hospitality. Next, and this is probably one of the most important steps that we did, we developed a prototype or a form for how to collect information. How are we going to assess this, these micro-credentials? 22 fields in this form, and essentially we were looking at what was being taught, how was it being taught, and we spent a lot of time talking about how was that learning being assessed. And so when we talk about how was the learning being assessed, we want to look at not just the volume of learning, but also what is that scope, the depth and the breadth of that learning? How do we have confidence that this learning actually occurred? We started with these different micro-credentials with this form, and we started to call it shortly after this the Critical Information Summary. We gave it to the institutions that had developed the micro-credentials, and we asked them to do a self-study and to take this form and to complete what they had done for their micro-credentials for it. We collated, analyzed, and summarized that data, and then we surveyed participants on the value of that critical information summary. Was it user-friendly? Did we miss anything big? And we'd all gone through it with the advisory committee, but we wanted more collective wisdom. Then we redesigned the form with their information. And then we did an assessment with external experts, subject matter experts. So we had to find a team of external assessors that demonstrated expertise in the subject matter area, experience in program evaluation, and because some of these programs that we were assessing were very proprietary knowledge, confidentiality was really important. And then teams of 2 to 3 assessors assessed each of the micro-credentials using the updated form that we developed, the critical information summary. We surveyed them for feedback on the process and the tool, and then we produced a summary report findings for the province, and in November, I think I did about 8 presentations on this process. What we learned, almost at the end now, micro-credentials can be assessed for academic credit using a repeatable process. Existing tools could absolutely be strengthened. It's imperative to ensure the process was transparent and rigorous. And really happy to say some of the micro-credentials, all of them except for 2, can be stacked and laddered. I had a question for you. How many of the 10 micro-credentials do you think got credits? 8, yeah, I know. I just gave the answer away. Yeah. Thank you for paying attention. And this is just this image Nan's going to show you next when she does her presentation. But when you look at open recognition, you look at expanding those pathways. I just love this image, or the octopus, as Nan's called it. You can see all the different ways that people can get assessment for what they know, how they know it. And again, tomorrow I'll be talking about the epistemology of whose knowledge is most valued, and it'll come into this as well. So the micro-credentials, next steps. We have 2 big ones. The provincial government has asked us to now assess 40 to 50 micro-credentials. Yeah, we can do that pretty readily. We could probably have that done in the next 6 months or so. But then they also asked us if we would consider doing a provincial credit bank. And that's where we will develop a repository of credits that have been assessed through that learning that I talked about earlier. So whether it's private organizations or private schools, and have it open to anybody, any post-secondary institution in the province. And the proposal, well, it was just submitted. So yeah, wish us luck.